Hi everyone and welcome to Janjal's World. Today I'm here with a book review. Well, before I get into the book, I want to ask you something. Have you ever, at least once in your lifetime, thought about what happens after death? I mean, there are so much speculations around us, like the existence of heaven, the existence of hell, ghosts, ghouls. I mean, all these speculations are there. But then, what is the right explanation? Have you ever thought? Well, why is that you wouldn't believe the existence of a soul or a ghost or heaven or hell? Because science doesn't say so? And science is just a subject. Then who would or who should say that there is life after death and death is not the end of everything? Let us say a scientist, but death is also connected to human beings. So, what if a doctor, a neurosurgeon, comes and tells you that there is definitely life after death and says things that is completely against what he has learned and practiced and believed just because he has undergone through one? Today, I'm here to review a book that does exactly the same. Proof of Heaven by Eben Alexander. Well, Dr. Eben Alexander is a neurosurgeon who is well known in his field. You know, this is one book that can tell you that if there is a power beyond science or beyond anything we know, and if that power, if that source of energy wants to prove its existence to you, to tell you that science is not all, it's not impossible. I mean, Dr. Eben Alexander is someone who has an explanation to all these experiences his patients or other people who claims to have seen heaven or who has seen God or have seen a tunnel at the end of which there is light. All these experience has a neurological explanation according to Dr. Eben Alexander. Him and other neurosurgeons like him also believes that it's all the game of the brain, and whatever they see when they are like in a position of death or when they temporarily dies, or like all these are just the game of the brain. And heaven, hell, I mean, even life after death doesn't exist. But when he kept repeating the same thing about many people's experiences, I guess the source of energy or the power beyond science felt quite intimidated and decided to teach him or maybe show him that there is much beyond what he thinks exists. In this book, Dr. Eben Alexander explained his experience so well that as a reader, I could feel what he was going through. I could visualize what he saw then. But then there are certain places where he says that it was very difficult for him to sum up the right words to convey his exact experience. What I really loved about this book is that he presented this book like a movie. Like in one chapter, he was talking about what was going on around his unconscious body, what the doctors were saying, what his family was undergoing through, what they were doing to, bring him back and such. And in the other chapter, he was going through this unexplainable journey which he wasn't even prepared for. I mean, that switch basically made me, so curious about what is going to happen next. Because when we fall sick, how our loved ones would, would be so confused, sad. At the same time, how they wouldn't lose hope, how strong they would be. You can relate all that. And on the other side, on the other chapters, all these realizations and all these possibilities you read, it actually opens a whole new spectrum of thoughts. He was he was telling about this incident, or this experience that he had gone through, like, like a newborn child, a newborn baby doesn't, is not taught how to suckle her, his or her mom's milk, but then they know what to do. They already know, they biologically know what to do. Similarly, he was in a situation where he didn't know what it was and what was he supposed to do, but at the same time he knew what he was supposed to do and he was doing it. And there was no explanation because he himself wasn't understanding why he was doing it, even though he knew he had to do it and he was doing it. That confusion was really, like, really amazing or interesting to me, because that is when I realized that it's not just about humans, about other animals as well. After the baby, like for example, a horse. After a baby horse is born, a fawn is born, it would just stand and start running. Who taught the baby to run? So there are so many things we don't notice in our life, which actually is unexplanatory, actually. So, that being said, there is another part of the book where he says that he was passing through this beautiful field where it was all green, down was normal earth, and he was floating. And there were these divine creatures around him. He knew they were divine. They were not talking to him, they were not interacting with him, but then he knew they were really divine. And then he approaches this energy source where he can hear the hymn of something really powerful. And then there was another part of the book where he said that he could see people praying for him. Initially, he couldn't recognize a few, but then gradually he could make out who was it. I found one particular thing very interesting is that there was this particular person who was praying for him, who wasn't physically there, who he hasn't ever seen in his life, but he saw that person praying and he did not know who it was. You have to read this book if you actually love exploring such kind of possibilities that is beyond science. Book is written in a very simple language, but yet there are medical terms which is also explained in the book. But I guess if you are curious about life after death, you have to read this book. This is one of the best books you can read about the topic. So I completely recommend this book to everyone who loves to read. Even if you're not curious about this life after death, I think you should go through this book, because among all these speculations that exist in this world about life after death, especially having this entertaining genre of horror, this is one speculation which is actually experienced by someone who was totally against this life after death, and someone who believed that death is the end of life, that's it. But then him going through not just a small experience, it's a huge experience. And even when he comes out of this experience, his circumstances on how he should explain it to the world, because him being one of them, he knows how he would be taken. And even though there is no medical explanation to why he underwent through this experience, no one was going to believe him. He knew it. And yet, he wrote this beautiful book for everyone who wants to believe him, because he knows what he has undergone through. And if you actually read the book, you can understand his sincerity on how much he wants to tell the world that, science is not all at all. And if you talk about the literature part, well, the book is written in a very simple way, very understandable way. It isn't difficult at all for anyone who is not even from the medical field to understand, because every medical terminology is explained quite well in very simple terms, and so it is very understanding. And there are some beautiful phrases that are used, which I really truly loved. And the way it was presented, like, you're well informed about everything that was going around, like around his unconscious body and inside his mind, where his soul was traveling to these different levels of experiences he was having. Everything is explained short and crisp, well informed. It is not none of the incidents are kept as at a drag. When an incident or a main event happens, the whole scene switches to the next, either if it is outside his unconscious body or inside his head. And it's kept short and crisp and directly to the words. And he is like very beautifully experienced or explained his emotions. So I totally loved this book. It actually opened a new spectrum of possibilities about life after death. So if you are someone like me who loves to like think about topics that hasn't been answered by science, then this is the book you need to grab now. It is there on Amazon, it's there on Flipkart, it's there on all online platforms, and it isn't expensive at all. So definitely please get this as your next read. And if you're someone who is interested much into the topic, I still recommend you the book, because it will take you into another world, another possibility. So hope you have a beautiful day, hope you have a beautiful week, and I hope you enjoyed reading this book. Bye bye.